They've been there for a few people.
We're gonna get started a little bit delayed. The planning commission is gonna go into executive session for a few minutes, so continue to talk amongst yourselves and we'll get started shortly after 7. Sorry for the delay, everyone. We're going to call what month is it? September East Vincent Township Planning Commission meeting to order. Let's stand for the pledge, please. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, so the first thing on our agenda is the zoning hearing board application for 3805 Schuylkill Road. Do we have anybody here from 3805 Schuylkill Road?
Mr. Chairman, if I may, the planning commission did meet in executive session. The chairwoman had announced that executive session before the start of our meeting, but since the meeting is now officially started, I just wanted to make sure the formal announcement that the board did meet in executive session. The planning commission did meet in executive session right before the start of this meeting to obtain legal advice related to their recommendation on the draft data center ordinance. So thank you.
Sure, thank you. So this zoning hearing board application there's currently a building on Schuylkill Road. It looks like a house. There's an office on the first floor, residential above. The applicant is requesting a variance from the zoning ordinance that would allow this property that's in the general commercial district to be converted to residential only. Currently in our code, residential is permitted in the GC district on the second floor if there's commercial on the first floor. So they're requesting a variance from the purpose statement of the GC district, which I thought was interesting. From the use, so they want to have a residential use there. And then also from the area and bulk requirements. And it wasn't clear to me what the variance they needed from the area and bulk requirements was. Anybody have any input on that?
No.
Okay. So anything to add on this one? Any other color on what's going on? Okay. Does anybody have any thoughts one way or the other that we'd like to share with the zoning hearing board? So when I was thinking about it, I went back to what the ordinance committee, who had looked at our whole zoning ordinance about a year ago, had said about this area and how it relates to our comprehensive plan. And the ordinance committee was proposing changing the name of the district to neighborhood commercial instead of general commercial to make it sort of more reflective of smaller scale commercial uses. And so potentially residential could be compatible with that, but that is not what our adopted policy is, and it's not what's in our ordinance. I didn't think that they had much of a hardship. I mean, they just want to do something that our zoning ordinance doesn't permit. It's this house is kind of sandwiched between two existing commercial uses. It's not somewhere I would pick to live, but we do need more housing. So there's that. And I think what's across the street is an approved housing development. Is that right? Across from like Park Road. Yeah. Yeah. So there will be residential across the street, which is also in the general commercial district, I believe. So This is Schuylkill Road, 724. Yeah, so it's right next to the I think it's a dance school and a like home goods store. Yeah. So let's do public comment. Does anybody have any thoughts on it? Okay, no comments. Oh, sure, go ahead. Do you want to come? All right, so the question was, what are the potential pitfalls? So if we think about what the vision is from a long-term perspective for that district, it's not residential. And so if there's a house there and somebody else later were to come along and want to redevelop that as a commercial use, that would be much more fitting for that district and would allow for more of a clustering of commercial uses. And so it kind of shoots you in the foot a little bit for your future vision for the district.
But you said you were thinking of making it more of a neighborhood. Zoning ordinance, changing it. I mean, not that this.
Right,
happened, but-
right. It did not happen, but yes. But just smaller scale retail
Yeah.
kind of office and not like big box store kind of things. Yeah. Sure, come on up. If you can, that'd be great.
I'm Sandy Heidel and 556 Park Road. My property abuts this property. And I have met both Mr. Vito as well as the new resident that's upstairs. And anyway, they've had other residents before upstairs. The bottom has not been used for a long time as an office. The gentleman is elderly and whatever. My only thing was he came along, 'cause one day I was walking up my driveway and I went, why am I seeing this big white thing? Because we always had bushes all along, so I couldn't even see 724 and it kept us very private and very quiet. They were all chopped down. However, we do have several well-established big trees. So I would have liked to have known he was going to do that ahead of time. I have no problem with it being two residents. I work with the consignment shop as well as with the Cotton and Crete. I've been both in the dance studio. So as a resident next door, it's fine.
Okay, thanks for sharing.
So Sandy, if I may, would you prefer to see perhaps the hedgerow reestablished? Okay. Well, no, what I'm wondering is if this planning commission is willing to make a recommendation that be a condition of approval on the variance that's being requested is to reestablish a hedgerow, if you'd like to see it. That tells me not really.
Yeah, it would be residential against residential, and it feels like there would be less reason to do that than for commercial. Yeah. Yeah.
She's saying yes, I know that.
It sounds to me like the board doesn't have much of a recommendation to pass along to the zoning hearing board.
I'm fine with it being residential. Then.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's already looks like a house.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't have I don't have any thoughts one way or the other.
Okay, I'd like to make a motion to pass along to the zoning hearing board that the planning commission has no issues with the zoning hearing board application from a planning perspective. Would anyone like to play it? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. All right, moving on to our next order of business, which is the data center ordinance. So for this one, I would like to pass it over to our solicitor to explain what's going on.
Thank you. Some of you, I believe, attended the town hall meeting that occurred last week. At that town hall meeting, State Senator Muth made it very clear to all of us that unfortunately Harrisburg is trying in several ways to take away local control of local zoning. If there's one thing that will call elected officials, local elected officials to action very quickly, it's a threat of trying to take away their control of local zoning. What we have been directed to do is craft what is, and when I say we, I mean township staff, consultants, and myself. We're put in a somewhat awkward position, but what we've been directed to do was craft what we believe to be a legally defensible zoning ordinance for data centers and energy technology campuses that could be placed in the IMU in order to help protect the township and its residents and to keep control at a local level, that zoning ordinance and control over data centers. We did that. We presented that ordinance late last week to the planning commission, and we're putting this planning commission in an incredibly awkward position where the board is asking for them to make a recommendation, their own recommendation, one way or another, on the ordinance as it is crafted today. That ordinance, we acknowledge, is not a perfect ordinance, but believed to be legally defensible. The board acknowledges that this is not something that is taken lightly and is happening at a very rapid pace. There will be a town hall meeting on Thursday evening to get further public comment related to the ordinance. And then on Monday, the 22nd, the board has a special meeting scheduled to possibly take action on the ordinance. So that's where we stand today. I'd be happy to go through provisions if you would like, but I believe that probably each member would like to make some comments as well before we open it up to the public.
So just to be clear, because the hearing has already been advertised, no changes can be made to the ordinance that will be presented at Monday's special Board of Supervisors meeting. So anything we talk about today will not be incorporated into what will be voted on, yay or nay, at the Board of Supervisors meeting on Monday. And the Planning Commission, when we talked in executive session, we're interested in taking another crack at it after whatever happens on Monday. So that is our intention. We'd like to talk about some of the issues that we have with the ordinance at this meeting and then hear from you all. You'll have another chance to talk about any issues you have at the town hall and then also at the hearing. So there's lots of opportunities for making your voice heard. So I would like to start with Elaine, if that's okay, just moving down the row.
Sure.
We're to give some comments on some of the things that you saw and that you would recommend be changed.
Do you just want some of them?
Yeah, if you could keep it to the top 2 or 3,
Okay.
that would be
All right.
great.
All right, so I was just numbering my concerns here. And I guess my first concern is an environmental concern. And that is the section on woodlands. There are beautiful mature woodlands over at Penhurst. I understand that yeah, this is now set up to go into the IMU. So that we're talking about Penhurst.
Yes, and it probably is worth mentioning that the township did receive on Friday a conditional use plan, a sketch plan. It wasn't a full application. We have not yet received the conditional use application or associated fees, but that plan is for a multiple use campus at the Penhurst facility. That plan would incorporate data centers, does incorporate data centers, office, and a blank space that we believe to be the carbon black pyrolysis operation. The applicant has indicated that he is well aware of what's happening in Harrisburg, just like we are. This is his way of protecting his rights under the existing ordinance, but has represented multiple times to Manager Zinkowski that he is willing to abandon that application, provided that there is an opportunity for a standalone data center use, and that would not include a pyrolysis plant. So that's not a threat from him. He is willing to, it's not a threat. He's recognizing that there's as much going on at a state level as we do. So.
Okay, so on the Penhurst property, there are a large amount of mature woodlands, and these are not just, they've been there a long time. And woodlands in general are not just single trees. They have a whole, whole system going on. They aid in infiltration of the water, stormwater runoff, sound and visual buffering, and they're just good for the flora and fauna also, and to look at. So woodlands to me are very important. I grew up in the woods, and to think of 60% of the woodlands being allowed to be cut down, I can't agree with that. So that to me is my number one concern. It's up to it's been put up to 60% clearing. To me, we have a 4-step design process in the SALDO where you're supposed to analyze the site that you're going to develop on and work around the existing woodlands and the steep slopes and the wetlands and the floodplains and build your development where those are not. So instead of just saying, I want my building here and that's where the woods are, we're going to cut it down, I would like to see it worked out a little bit better. And then the idea of replacing a tree, like if you have a 12-inch tree and you're going to replace it with one 6-inch tree, one 2-inch tree, and one 3-inch tree, and one 1-inch tree, if that adds up to 12, I wasn't keeping track. That's just not reasonable, because a huge mature tree cannot just be replaced by a few single trees. It's just not the way to do things. So number one, it's the woodlands and the hedgerows for me. I think we have to work on that really well. Number two would be, I think we should have some kind of LEED certification on the on that. If you're going to build a data center, we should follow what the LEED what they say should be incorporated. And Michelle Adams wrote a whole article up on that, and I would like to see that incorporated. So those are my two top things.
Kurt.
I'd like to be really clear that I'm pretty pissed off about this. I understand the urgency with which this was passed on Monday, but I do not agree with how it's been done. But following what you're asking of my top two, I don't know, in no particular order, I'll just say the maximum height has to be lowered to match the zoning, not 90 feet, it should be 60. I personally have been rallying against TDRs the whole time. I do not agree with them. They don't help the folks who live nearby. Putting a park 5 miles away on an open space or something like that doesn't help the folks who are dealing with noise and pollution and everything in their backyard. I'm not going to speak as much as Elaine, but I welcome anybody's comments. No, you're perfect.
We'll do public comment in a minute when we've said our piece. I said we wouldn't do repave, but I want to repeat yours, and that I feel like the approach that the ordinance takes of using TDRs to get to the building coverage that we suspect the developer is going to want is selling out the residents who live up there. And the approach that should be taken is I like the tiered approach that it uses. So if you want an extra lot coverage, then you have to buy TDRs. But I think instead of buying TDRs, we should exchange that for the design features that we're looking for and make them specific. If we're specifically interested in not using water from the Schuylkill, then we should specifically call out that we want recirculated water. And I'm not a data center expert, but I thought we had hired some data center experts who knew what those technological features were. I think we should be asking for renewable energy to be used. And I think we should be asking for battery backup systems instead of generators, which I know are all things that the more cutting edge data centers are doing, and it's not an unreasonable ask and could be in exchange for getting more lot coverage. Nicole.
Yeah, I'm disappointed how this turned out too, and I know that it's a difficult position, everybody. Sorry, I'm disappointed how this turned out also, and it's been a difficult position for everyone tonight. I was able to read Michelle Adams' review right before the meeting, and I agree with her. I don't know if that was put up on the website, but that'd probably be good.
It was not.
Oh, okay. To have the LEED certification, I think that would, as she said, solve a lot of the issues. I'm very concerned about the use of water and having a closed loop cooling system. I'm concerned about what our electric bills will become. I'm concerned about I'm very concerned about the woodland and the residents and the buffers. I think the buffer should be increased and looked at closely. I think of the architectural way that it looks, the height at 90 feet seems extreme to me, and I can't imagine living across the street from it. Concerned about the access and the circulation, and I think we should incorporate Lawson, who's not here this evening, had some recommendations about circulation and road access that should be incorporated into that. I don't know if we have those. And that's all I can think of right now.
Can I add another one then?
Yeah.
Another one is the sound levels at the property level. I think they're too high as they are. I would suggest that during business hours, if you will, Monday through Friday, 8 to 8 kind of thing, they be 50 decibels instead of 65. And the evenings and weekends, they'd be lower at like 45.
Can I add something else in?
Yeah.
Why not?
And I think the air quality has to be monitored that because yeah, I understand that our air quality isn't too good here, and there was actually a presidential what are those called? Executive order that no data centers should be built where the air quality is poor. That is no longer in effect, but just the fact that a president of the United States thought that that should be looked at, that's kind of scary to think that the air quality from data centers will not be good. They're going to increase the pollution. Also, I think, does anyone else want to add something before?
I have one more thing. I just wanted to know, I'm not sure if this came up in any of the town halls, but the PUC is actively considering and developing a model tariff for data centers. So it's very likely that in the very near future, like sometime this month, there will be more guardrails around how data centers are treated with the electric distribution company. And they will be on the hook for paying for more of the infrastructure upgrades that would be needed to get them the power that they need. And so my thought was that if there is a next iteration of this ordinance, that model tariff should be available and it can point to that instead of the language that's in there now.
Also, the traffic, I think restricting the traffic to a half a mile is not enough because it's kind of isolated back there, but the traffic all around should be considered also. So I would increase the traffic input report to be at least 5 miles and to include any of the listings under sensitive receptors, which were schools,
Hospitals.
hospitals.
Right.
So those were.
There's also 2 sections I'd like to see added that don't exist, unless I'm just misreading the labels, is sightings and decommissioning plans, with money held at escrow to fully decommission when the time comes.
When you say citing, what do you mean?
This is where I get a little confused. It's really like how it sits on the property. Maybe Joe can,
Oh.
Say that better, but yeah, it's like where it sits on the property and it falls into the setbacks and buffer zones and everything. It's kind of a one cohesive thing.
I think I have one other thing here, and that's emergency response plans should be strengthened
Yes.
also.
Okay,
Madam Chair, if I may,
yes.
just to add to Elaine, I've met with the fire departments, police, and be meeting with the county hazmat too, for them to come up with a plan as well, to be involved, but they've already been doing their homework on this, so they are engaged in this process that goes along.
Good to hear. Let's do public comment before we do motions. Who would like to go first, please?
Hi, Kelsey Adams. I agree with all of the concerns that have been stated. I think, I don't know if you guys had this little paper, but it all sounds nice. I guess question for the solicitor. When you said you've created something that you believe to be legally defensible, the things that we just heard around suggestions for changes, does any of that make it not legally defensible?
It depends on how it's incorporated. The way that things have been stated here, I don't hear anything that would be legally indefensible, but it really depends on how you write the provision.
Okay, because I think a lot of these were surfaced kind of at least at the last meeting. So I'm a little disappointed that they're not included already.
We are too.
Yep. And then I think the only other thing that I'm curious about, and I don't know if this falls under legally defensible or not, but I would love to see something that involves annual environmental testing, not just sort of studies beforehand, right?
That's in there.
That is in there.
Yeah.
Okay. So thank you. All right. I have to go put my kids to bed. I would love to not raise them next to a data center. So thank you, everyone. And thank you for raising your concerns, and I'll see you at the next meeting.
Thanks for coming. Good night. Please.
Question on that, Randy. I live on Penhurst Road. I gave the audible ha when you made the traffic comment, because even with a speed bump in there, that's just the starting line for the Atco Speedway. They slow down and go. So we already have a traffic problem. But getting to my main question, and this is a question, not a comment at this point. In the definitions section, there was an area that described one of the usage, which is actually a power generation. And I don't see that, maybe I missed it, covered anywhere else in the ordinance. Is that something that's a use that would be acceptable? A constant power generation facility?
It's an accessory use to the data center, correct? Yeah. Yeah, so if they couldn't just build a power generation plant, they'd have to.
Well, right,
Yeah.
right. But if it was an accessory and it supplied the main power for their data center, would they be able to run it 100% of the time and sell excess energy to the grid?
The way it's written, I don't believe so. There was something I pulled out from that I was surprised about that.
Well,
Go
where
ahead.
does it say no? That's, a more definitive question.
What page is that?
I'll look at the solicitor because it's a solicitor kind of question.
Their page. No.
Oh, yeah, there's no page numbers on these. Page
Yeah,
four.
I saw that there was a specific thing for the reactor thing that says, no, you can't have a reactor here. And I was looking for no, you can't have a constant power generation thing going on there. Because
Yeah.
that will certainly increase pollution levels, noise levels, all the rest of it. So I would think that would be something that you would want to preclude if possible and would hopefully be legally defensible.
It's not precluded now. If the question is whether or not a power generation plant is precluded, it's not. It's specifically called out as accessory equipment, basically. Or what we call data center equipment in the ordinance. Whether or not they could sell back to the grid is kind of above our pay grade, and I think would become a PUC question. Possibly is all I could say to you. Whether or not that's operated 24 hours a day, 7 days a week is not specifically addressed. However, anything that would be considered a power generation plant as data center equipment would also have to comply with everything else that's in this ordinance. So all of the feasibility studies, economic impact studies, environmental impacts, noise, all
Right,
of that
so
would have
the-
to be in compliance.
So the provisions that allow for greater than normal noise during generation for outage things would not apply if they're running it full time.
Correct. That is
Okay.
correct. That would be a backup generator. That provision is specific to the backup generator, would
Okay.
not apply to something that was operated continuously.
All right, thank you.
Sure.
So the part that I had picked up in here was, so this is under data center accessory uses. The use shall not include energy generation systems used or intended to be used to supply power to the data center during normal operations. So when would it be used?
Backup generation, or if there were batteries that were being powered to charge those batteries, for example.
Okay, so that's not for the power generation, because this says energy generation systems. So, Dana, I can't find that thing you just showed me. I'm sorry. Can you come up and read it? Read what you
Madam
found?
Chair, while you're looking at that, if I could just let the gentleman know, is on Penhurst, there are 2 more speed humps that we've ordered to go on the road, as well as our inspection company has found damage on Penhurst Road. That entire road will have to be resurfaced when that's complete from the water company. And Brown Drive is also getting 2 speed humps as well to control traffic.
Oh, I see it.
The secondary speed study, impact study to be done to see what kind of results you've gotten from this bump, because basically it's been like swatting at bees. It just makes me angry. You keep coming down the road, they're getting off their shift at 4, and they're pissed off about that.
Well, they're gonna get 2 more, so we'll really aggravate them.
Right, right. But I'll be feeling their aggravation.
Let me know and I'll let the chief get out there, I'll let the police handle that. But thank you.
You want me to read it?
If you could.
Oh,
I'm
okay.
sorry.
Dana Chaffone, Hearthstone Circle. It's under, oh gosh, now I can't find it.
And I just.
Data center equipment. Data center equipment is the category it's under, and there's an inset section called specific examples of DCE include, but are not limited to the following. And there's 3 paragraphs. In the second paragraph, it says, a power generation plant fueled by natural gas combined or single cycle power plant or natural gas linear generation, fuel cell or similar non-oil-based, non-coal-based, or I can't say it, base power. Thank you. Power generation systems and equipment, which creates electricity to be used on the DCET campus, sold to or by a utility company, or in some combination of sale or purchase. So that's where I was questioning to this gentleman's point, like, would this be sold? So I guess we'd like to have an interpretation on that beyond used on the campus.
Like I said, it could possibly, but there are other regulatory agencies that would be involved. It's not something that the township has complete control over.
So you couldn't just eliminate that last portion of that, Joe, that would, after electricity to be used on the campus,
It certainly can be part of, a future.
a recommendation from the
Recommendation.
PC.
Absolutely.
Okay, so
What?
let's maybe take that into consideration.
This is really a definition that's not necessarily a part of saying it's gonna happen, right? I agree that it shouldn't be there, but.
Well, I think that's a really good
definition of what
point.
Power generation plant is.
That's a good point, because there are some sections in here, like the tier 4 generator, don't ask me to find it right now, but I'll go back and look for it, that are in the definition but aren't in the ordinance.
The SMR, the small modular reactor, is in the definition section, and later you find it referenced again saying, no, you can't make enough, you can't
Right.
put an SMR.
Right, but it doesn't say that about, right, the power generation
in-
plant.
Right,
That's
that,
separate.
sorry, I apologize. That was intentional, so that was not something that would be permitted as part of the data center and energy technology campus. So that was a specific recommendation that came to us.
I guess the presumption is that something that is a full-time supply for the data center would have different operating characteristics than a backup generator, which would be noisier.
Potentially, yes. To answer your question, yes, but we would hope that perhaps the backup generator would have the same sound restrictions as something that would operate 24/7. But yes, that's to answer your question.
Anybody else have a comment?
Thank you, fellow citizens. As I've had the pleasure of speaking to this wonderful group a couple times in the past, I'm going to leave that all behind me, other than that I'm and my wife are residents that own what was called the dairy farm of Penhurst that we bought in 1987, I believe it was, 87, 85. At a public hearing in Harrisburg at a big auditorium, which was open to the public, and anybody could come in and bid any amount. There had to be a sealed bid, and we did our sealed bid, and we were fortunate enough to win it. So since we've been there, we've had 4 neighbors. First, the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. Second, a group that wanted to do a certain development of what we now euphemistically call Penhurst. They failed. They had a third one that came in and they went bankrupt. And then we had another one that came in, and each one of them proposed different uses of Penhurst, as we all may remember. They varied. They had some good and bad points to them. And what we now come to is what is before the township, first this planning commission, and then ultimately the supervisors. And we all feel, as you've said one way or another, and I'm sure people that are left in this audience know, we feel there is a bit of a rush to judgment. It's happening very quickly, and there's different alternatives. I'll let that process be what it is, but I just want to focus on what the role of a planning commission is. And that I want to thank you for being citizens and volunteering your time to do this. I know that it takes a lot of volunteer time and it takes a lot of energy and you have to do preparation before this. You have to have legal counsel. You have to have private session, executive sessions. But I just want to say thank you as another citizen of this township, that it's important. But here's what I feel strongly about. The role of a planning commission is to do just that. To look at things, not just for, you have to look at it within the context of the issue that's before you, but you can look at it over a span of your experience. Some of the people in the planning commission have lived here longer than my wife and I have, and we've been here for over 40 years. But you also have to look at it in the context of what's going to look like in the future. Now, we know the world keeps changing. We know the roads are more congested. We know that the character of East Vincent Township is very different, and I'm still happily and very proud of being an active farmer. We have cattle, we raise crops, we have horses that are our own, we board horses for other people, but it is an active farm. That is really, really, really tough these days. It's tough to take machinery out on the road. It's tough to find people who will come in and repair your equipment. You trouble getting the supplies that you need. And now, as you can imagine, if anybody came here in a car that's been newer than the last 4 or 5 years, who the hell understands what that technology is? Can you imagine what it's like with a tractor? I mean, it's all computers and you got to have specialists come in. But in any event, the point of it is the world is changing and we have to accept that. I speak inclusively to my nearest neighbors. My nearest neighbors are people on Brown Drive, people that are over in Carrigan Village, the people that are just coming into Spring City along the access ways there. But I'm also speaking to people who are not here tonight. The hundreds of residents that are in the retirement center at Penhurst. Forgive me, I don't know the exact title of the group, but we all know what it is. A huge, sorry? Veteran Center. Thank you very much. They're my residents. They're my buddies. I see them when we go up there. They ask us to bring our horses. We have events for the older people to come out. We come up. We're happy to do it. Those are my neighbors too. Their voices aren't heard. They did their service for America. They all were either in the National Guard or the reserves or in active duty. I have an obligation to say to them, thank you for your service, just the way I thank you for your service as volunteers for this important role of the Planning Commission. But they're my neighbors, and I'm sorry they can't be here. Many of them, as you know, are infirm, but they're there. And I don't know, as the crow flies, whether they would be about 100 yards or less from where this huge complex, it's going to take over that whole, where all the buildings are up there. Some may not be torn down. Who knows? We don't even have a site plan for it. I mean, it's just horrendous. But they're neighbors too, and they have the rights to be heard. And so when I come back to the core point with myself, and I ask you as a planning commission, do what you think is right. We have the capacity to say, what do we want in East Vincent Township? I mean, changes will come, but what do we want? And we have that choice. I mean, I know from all those plans that came from all the people before us, they're just each one's a different one. But we have a choice. You have a choice. You can make your voices, they may be advisory, but that's what a planning commission is. I urge you to have the courage, as I've heard comments tonight, to say, this thing doesn't work. This duck isn't going to fly. This thing is just an abomination of the latest place to go with a parcel of ground that nobody knows what to do with. It is a tough decision to make. But to make the wrong one isn't to make a decision, it's to make something that will make it even worse. So in conclusion, I would just say, as I listen to your various comments, stand up. Stand up and say, in the view of the planning commission, that's what your role is, that this is not consistent with what East Vincent wants to be, has been, or will be in the future. It's just not right. Thank you for allowing me to speak.
Thank you.
Thank you, John.
Chris.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Christine McNeil. I've been here for over 30 years. And I want to say something very similar that I've been saying for a while, and John really spoke to it quite eloquently tonight. It doesn't fit in East Vincent, and I know that you're legally obligated to have this use. But it really is a big responsibility to protect our township. And I'm really encouraged by what each one of you had to say tonight. But when you look at this picture, and I wish I could put it up on the wall and everybody could see it, but it's on, I did put it this morning on various Facebook sites. We're looking at 110 acres of land. We know that a lot of the buildings, the majority of the buildings at the state hospital grounds have been demolished. There are two really big forested areas. Elaine spoke about it. And I agree that it's a woodland system and it should not be treated as, you know, so many caliper trees. It's irreplaceable. Irreplaceable. And what's important, as East Vincent Advocacy wrote in its document a week ago that we submitted to the township, I can't believe that was just a week ago, but boy, things have been going at lightning speed here. We would like to see that area prohibited from any development. And that as we took the site visits that we used to have on properties and a 4-step process that we used to have, not developers just coming in and plonking down a map and saying, this is what I want to do. We should be out there. It is a system. Now, yes, some trees have grown up and they might not meet the current chic thing of saying it's a native species, but nevertheless, all those trees together create a woodland system. It's wildlife that are now, you know, deer that are going into a lot of our farmlands. I mean, I can tell you about Ben Cobb on Cobb Road telling me in land preservation conversations, you know, there's no place for the deer to go. And the woodlands are a place for the deer to live and to inhabit and be. So if we start taking down, I have another map, but if you look at East Vincent Township, I'll bring it up in a minute, only 11% of our township is forested. We're a farming township historically, but the majority of the woodlands that are intact in our township are there and up higher and on John's property and in the state game lands. I think it's really important that we get out of our heads and we get on the ground and that you all truly understand what this land looks like and what's at stake. If they demolish all the buildings, I understand that possibly could happen. People have been saying it tonight. You know, there are, especially the main building as a historic resource and a place of conscience, a place where people were not treated properly. So we're going to just not treat the property properly again. Is there going to be any place of remembrance for the people who lived there and suffered there? It's something to think about with, particularly with that big main building. We have a Schuylkill River Trail that is a state heritage corridor. It's not in the ordinance that we're going to protect it, even though East Vincent Advocacy asked for it. We have a preserved farmland. East Vincent Advocacy asked for the preserved farmland, you know, that the impact on preserved farmland would be mitigated. So I think that there are some, we're in the Schuylkill Heritage Area. It's a national, hopefully forever, maybe not only, and a state heritage corridor that's going to be impacted. Those are important cultural and recreational values to this township and to the region and to the state of Pennsylvania. I want you to think about that too, in terms of what this is going to do. I gave you a detailed side-by-side comparison to the 22-page document that East Vincent put together. I mean, that the township put together, and then the East Vincent Township put their ordinance together. And there are a series of recommendations, many of which have been echoed tonight by you all independently. But I just urge you to take a hard look at what we could do. If there's going to be an amendment, or we're going to have this zoning hearing, I hope that the Planning Commission can be a robust partner in shaping both the zoning hearing board the hearing that's going to come before the zoning hearing board, as well as an amendment. And I urge you to at least have some type of vote tonight to make a strong statement to the Board of Supervisors that you want to be strong partners in all of this, that you really say it. We have had a series over time where the Planning Commission was not taken seriously. I think we have an opportunity to be taken seriously by this board. It's a different board. Lead standards are important. And I think that the bigger organizations will go that route, but I wanted you to see how the tier 4 is really not sustainability, but gold standard lead standards are sustainable. And I've tried to give you a chart to understand what all those aspects are. We've been, you know, as a small group in East Vincent Advocacy, trying to really educate ourselves and take a lot of time to understand these things. So I wanted you to see it. And if I had to make my recommendations, I think the noise levels are critical, the woodlands are critical, and that we really need to look at putting limits on the size of this data center. Right now, we have lots of options through the TDRs or through community benefits, but how big do we really want it to be? And does it make sense to put some limits there? I think we should make it so there are some limits, and that when you look at the site plan and you figure out how big it possibly could be, you know, what are the siting criteria? We have certain things, but how can we preserve some of that land in this process if it goes forward? But as I've said before, I think this is a terrible use. I think there are other uses that I wish we would have been more proactive over the last few years to bring something else into being. It didn't happen. I'm sorry it didn't happen. But maybe there's a way, if this falls down, you never know, maybe they'll all go to Limerick, that we take a more proactive role in putting something that fits the character of our township. So I know you have a hard task tonight and going forward. I'm here to support you. I think East Vincent Advocacy is here to support you too. But thank you.
Thank you. And thanks for all your work on this.
Hi, Steve Hacker, 881 Brown Drive. I actually had a couple of legal questions. Before I get to it, though, I do want to echo a lot of what was said here. I think the setback should definitely be more than 400 feet. sound does not, no limits. The water issue is huge. I commented on this enough times, I don't need to say it, but to have a data center on our side of the river and another one which is being talked about in Limerick, along with a water, a nuclear power plant that are all taking water out of the earth at an unprecedented level. I don't see how this can hold. There's talk of a data center going in next to the outlets in Limerick. And to be doing this all of a sudden and taking this much water out of the ground, it doesn't seem like it would have could go on and, it seems finite, the amount of water. As far as the trees and the wildlife, yeah, some of the oldest growth trees in this area are right in there. I've never seen more deer in my yard than this year because of all the construction that's going on. Eating all our plants and everything else. If this thing goes in, if there's more construction, it's going to be absolute carnage on the highways. Because they're just going to have nowhere else to go, and it'll be a danger, not just to obviously the deer, but to every car driver out there. I'll get that out of the way. So you mentioned about this being defensible. So does that mean, and I listened to everything Senator Muth said too when she was here. So if we get this ordinance in here sooner rather than later, does that mean that we can legally defend ourselves against what they want to do as opposed to what it is right now, or can they just override our ordinance?
I'm not sure that do you mean
So
can the state override the
yeah,
ordinance?
that's what I
Okay.
meant. Yes.
Typically they do not, but there is always the opportunity for the state to preempt local regulation. So if they decided to take that direction rather, then it's possible. I can't tell you definitively whether they would or not. I can tell you that what we have seen, what Bob has seen, what Senator Muth has shared with us, is that language is not in the current iterations of what's being discussed both publicly and privately. So our understanding is that no, they're not taking it away if the ordinance is passed. If the board were to pass the ordinance before the state were to enact whatever it is from a legislative perspective, but it could happen, Steve, yes.
Right. Okay. That's why I'm asking why, the rush to get this done.
To create, yeah, and when I indicated legally defensible, I mean with respect to the criteria in the ordinance, and regarding a challenge by a potential developer.
Okay, so, but this ordinance, like it as it stands right now, because this meeting was announced to the supervisor, it has to be this one.
Yeah, so
That's what you
yes,
said. I
Yeah.
just want to clarify.
yes,
Okay. But if the supervisors pass this as is, it can be amended.
yes,
Okay. Suppose a plan comes in from somebody in between the time this one was amended or this was accepted and that was amended.
Mhm.
Are they still held to that?
Are they still they are,
Will they
they're-
have to abide by the amended version, or how does
no,
that work?
they abide by the then enacted version of the ordinance.
Okay,
I'm sorry, at the time of submission, correct, yes,
Okay.
sir. The way that what we didn't mention, and forgive me, I probably should have mentioned it earlier, is that this is now, the way that this ordinance is written, there is a special exception requirement. So this would be something that would go before the zoning hearing board for approval. A special exception is very similar to a conditional use, except for it's heard by the zoning hearing board as opposed to the Board of Supervisors. Special exception being zoning hearing board, conditional use being Board of Supervisors. What that allows for is the board and the township to take an active role in the process, not as the decision maker, but rather as a party to the special exception process before the zoning hearing board. It's a long way around the barn of me saying that, yes, they would have the opportunity to adhere to the original enacted ordinance if a plan came in under that ordinance. But the special exception conditions that the board may ask for, and again, we don't know what those would be, but hypothetically, those conditions could include a lot of what has been discussed this evening. Not everything, but certainly things like lead certifications would be part of that process and would be discussed in a very open and public setting.
So what about things like setbacks and building heights?
Setbacks and building heights, that would be to your point, those are the things that they would be able to comply with under the then enacted version of the ordinance.
So they would get that in after this is passed, we'd be stuck with this one until,
Potentially.
okay, just to clarify. Okay,
I'm sorry if I didn't make that clear earlier.
okay. So, yeah, just reading this first paragraph about data center allowed by special use exemption to permit a data center. What, maybe dumb question, but what if we just said no? You can't have the permit.
If we said no,
What if we just said no? I mean, what if the supervisor just said no to allowing a permit, by special exemption? What would happen?
if the, so the board, I think well, go ahead.
It would be the zoning hearing board that would say no.
Oh, I see what you mean. Okay. I understand. Okay.
But
All
to add to that, Mr. Hacker, the Township Board of Supervisors will have the opportunity to participate in that hearing. Usually in a setting such as this, I would expect that the board would send me, Bob, to represent the township's position in front of the zoning hearing board. The township then, if it did not like the conditions that were placed upon the ultimate, if the zoning hearing board were to grant the special exception and the township's Board of Supervisors disagreed with the conditions that were placed on that approval, the township has a right of appeal to a court.
Okay.
So that's another reason that we changed it from conditional use to special exception to allow for that active participation.
Okay. All right, that's all I have.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Quick follow.
Yes, sir.
So, big rush. Is that presumably because there's a fear that the opportunity to have something on the books will disappear before?
You're hitting the nail on the head.
And so there's two risks here. One is we pass nothing now because we don't like it enough. And somebody comes in under the existing stuff and we're stuck.
Correct.
Or we pass something that we really don't like with a foul taste and hope, but have no assurances of, that we'll get a chance to make it closer to what we like a little bit later. And what can we do to speed up that secondary loop?
The future amendment process, we
Yeah.
call it, that secondary loop. I don't want to speak for this board, but I believe that what I've heard here this evening is that what one of the recommendations from this body will be to immediately have the opportunity to begin amending and proposing amendments to the legislation or the ordinance once it's passed. So I think that loop will be sped up as much as possible. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's not a definitive guess, like, oh, well,
Well-
about 3 weeks to turn it around.
I don't want to speak for the planning commission, but correct, but ballpark, I wouldn't be surprised if there were a meeting like Tuesday or Wednesday following the board meeting.
But then a new ordinance would have to be drafted and a new hearing would have to be
Correct.
advertised. So there would have to be 30 days between whenever the ordinance was drafted and when the hearing took place and was potentially voted on.
Is that true for amendments?
Yes.
Monica,
But this is why we're talking about meeting right away, just to keep that ball rolling and not wait for our next cycle for the planning commission. We're talking about literally meeting next week.
Monica Scriver, Valley Creek Lane. I'm speaking as Monica Scriver up here. I want to thank everybody on this planning commission. You guys have worked really hard. And the question you brought up about the speed of the amendments is huge because you have worked, and I know you've worked because I sat and watched May's planning commission meeting and Jude's, and the questions you ask and the things you ask to be implemented that are missing in this is heartbreaking. And I imagine for you, it's as heartbreaking for you as it is for me. And so I understand that this is, what did you call it, Joe? It's a different, you didn't call it a beast, but when we started this whole process, you said, this is like nothing else. You know, that's why you have to have a standalone ordinance. And I say we, because I really thought the amount of time and energy that many of us spent in asking questions and contributing was going to be a factor. And it is heartbreaking to see so many of the things that we worked for not in this document. Whether you're rushing it or not, the material was there, the suggestions were there. I watched the meetings. So thank you. Again, you are volunteering your time to be put through this, whatever you want to call it, because it's not easy. And so if you look at a lot of the different townships in Virginia and the southern states, they had them plopped in their laps. They were built, and then they were like, whoa, let's back. They at least had something, and then they could backtrack and do the amendment. So the way this whole thing is, it's just piggly wiggly. So hopefully we can right the ship at some point and get everything that you were recommending and what our advocacy group was recommending. A lot of the suggestions we came up with came from townships that, you know, they can't breathe, they have anxiety, they're having heart conditions. Their wells are being filled with dirt. Their water's being impacted. So this isn't stuff we're just pulling out to be difficult either. And I think that's important. When I was little, maybe 3 or 4, I had older brothers. They were like 7 and 9 years older than me, and they tormented me, which it wasn't great. And they threatened me with Bigfoot. And do you remember that song in the 70s? Bigfoot's coming, gonna get you, gonna get you. You're too young, Haley. But for those of you, and some of you are too young, but they used to sing that song to me, and they told me there was a window as I went up the steps, and they're like, he's going to jump through that window and get you one night. It didn't work for me then, and fear doesn't work for me now. And I'm just sad that we are being told, you got to do it. You got to do it, because otherwise there's no good comes of that. And I think once this is passed, I really do think for the benefit of all of us in our beautiful township, we have to make these amendments for the veterans. You know, they are sensitive receptors. They're people that should not have a hum going 24 hours a day, and it shouldn't be at the noise levels that's listed in this ordinance. It just shouldn't. More and more information is coming out by the minute about the detriment. And it's funny, what I read about data centers coming to your neighborhood and the health impacts and everything. Well, our health is already being impacted. We just haven't realized it yet, because the air pollution that's coming from Virginia up, because of the amount of data centers they've built, and Tennessee and Washington, we are already being impacted with poor air quality. We're surrounded in our area locally with data centers. Well, that low hum impacts your cardiac health, your stress levels. It can cause diabetes. The studies are coming out now. So the one thing the other thing I want to talk about is a traffic study. There was a traffic study done by and it was in one of the planning commission meetings, and I wanted to note it, by our traffic study engineer. And they looked at the roads around Pennhurst, and they basically said that the roads are quiet enough that there shouldn't be a problem for the vehicles to come through for the data center. And this is not a criticism, but I have been coming to these meetings for years, and I can tell you the most frequently thing brought up are the individuals living around Pennhurst that are dealing with traffic hazards, people getting run off their side where their mail is, you know, people coming too fast, afraid for their children's lives. So there has to be some kind of realistic study done that comes into play here, because I just don't even understand that based on something's not right. Let's right that ship is another thing. And then finally, with the water, I would say everything with leads. We have Michelle Adams, who is an expert on the panel. She presented a beautiful document with leads. I can't believe that didn't make this ordinance, because that's where our protections come into play with energy efficiency, environmental issues. That is imperative. The water draw, in this ordinance, which I had never seen before, it mentions I did number my pages, about water coming from raw water coming from, I can't find it now, of course, but why are we talking about raw water when we've talked about the best thing for our environment and our residents is a closed loop system where they wouldn't be taking so much water out? That is a concern. Again, the veterans, I'll say, at all costs, we should be protecting them. Crypto, I don't know what crypto is. Penn Futures lawyer Bridget Mayer doesn't know what they are. And that's concerning, because my understanding from what she says is that crypto mining isn't even defined. So if it's not in here, that people could come, is that true? She said it's not definable. Nobody can understand what it is. So how do we protect ourselves? Because they say that's everything we've researched with data centers. Crypto is like the noise and everything is. Can I ask that question? I mean, is it true? Like there's no. Like data's, well, they're not, yeah, they're not data centers. They're called crypto or Bitcoin. But are they legally lumped in? So that's one thing we talked about, including in the definition, at least to protect us if that's, I mean, unless things have changed since she reported that on the Penn Futures website. I'm not going to take any more time. I think you get my point. Thank you. Oh, well, this is the other thing that's kind of disappointing, and I know for you guys. In one of the meetings, somebody asked that the assemblage of adjacent parcels developed as a unified development be removed. Joe, you said you would remove that. It's not removed. So, and you brought up a good point, like that's giving them permission then, correct, to go to adjacent parcels and do co-location or generators or things like that, correct?
So the entire campus doesn't have to be on one parcel. They can be an amalgamation of parcels, but that creates the campus, the tract. I think that answers your question.
So then it could potentially spread out and not just be on one.
Well, we'll use Pennhurst as the example.
Yeah.
That tract is carved. There's a piece that's across the road, so to speak. But in any event, if Pennhurst had an additional parcel or multiple parcels, the campus would be developed as one. Under this ordinance, the campus would be developed as one parcel, if you will, or one tract. So, but once that is proposed, once the campus is proposed, it's limited to that. It doesn't spread, if you will, over time without having to come back before the board, through the process. Does that make sense?
I'm glad it does to you.
Okay.
So just be aware that there are things that it's very disappointing that you've made recommendations and spent time researching and they didn't land in this ordinance. So the sooner you can work on amendments to get your good ideas and the things that you've recommended tonight, I would, whatever it needs to take, please do that. Thank you.
And Monica, I did want to recognize you too. You put a lot of time into that document that EVA presented.
And it would
But-
have been great to get that EVA document in advance too of the meeting, which we did not.
And I do want to acknowledge that there was a missed reference to the township asking EVA to provide a draft document. That is not what happened. EVA volunteered its time collectively to provide feedback based on what had already been prepared previously. So I just want to correct the record in that respect. Sure.
Thank you.
Dana Chaffone, East Vincent Advocacy President and 95 Hearthstone Circle. I'm not going to spend too much time up here because everyone has, I think we have a good handle on what the key issues are that we would maybe want to address through an amendment process. It's pretty much everything that EVA put into their submission. And Joe, thanks for clarifying. Yeah, we're not lawyers or certified planners, but we did do a lot of research. Elaine and Chris McNeil and Monica, and I joined in and tried to help. And everything that we put into our submission, we took from model ordinances or actual ordinances that are in place. So, you know, it wasn't pie in the sky. We weren't just kind of pulling things out of the air. I just want to mention a couple of things for the folks that probably haven't seen that. If you're not on Facebook, we do have a Facebook group. I know some of you are. That's great. But like the setbacks, we had proposed 1,000 feet as a setback. Need to close up. We did have closed loop systems as mandatory and no well draws. The woodland protections. And we wanted to differentiate between taking down trees and taking out, you know, a woodland, the complete woodland in the forest. We wanted to see a differentiation there. And I think we said, don't take any of it out. You know, that gets back to siting and where can we put this so that we're maintaining that natural habitat. Yeah, everything else you guys have touched on, and I think we have so much here in common. Two other things we talked about. And again, this is from other ordinances. Any new power lines would have to be underground. And I know Joe is going to follow up with I want to say it's East Whiteland, Joe, that they put some of this in the basement so that it didn't go up as high because we did not, you know, we had 60 feet and so 90 feet was a surprise. So I think Joe was going to find out how they got to that negotiation point with their, okay, thanks, Joe. Trying to think if there was anything else that. I think that's it. And I would say this, I think we're not alone. I mean, as Monica mentioned, all these other states that are going through this, we're all grappling with this, right? It landed in all of our laps. As residents, this is like, you know, it's shocking, right? As board members, it's a lot of responsibility for you guys too, but we're not alone. Luckily, you know, there is good information out there that we can pull from, but I understand the quandary that we have in this House bill potentially getting passed. So one of the things I wanted to ask about on the amendment side, and I think we do need to move right away into that is, could we advertise ahead of time, knowing that within that time frame, advertise for a hearing within the, whatever that is, I guess you can't do it more than 30 days in advance, knowing that we're working towards that. Would that help to speed up the process beyond, you know, doing this more quickly and having meetings more quickly?
Sure. The advertisement requirements for zoning ordinances is not more than 60, not less than 7 consecutive weeks. So when you advertise the zoning or a zoning ordinance or a change to a zoning ordinance, you actually have to provide a copy of what you would potentially act on to the newspaper and to the law library when you advertise. So, I'm sorry, a final version.
Well,
You can make some small changes, you know, if it's Scrivener's errors or trying to renumber things, but as far as any substantive change, you can't do it. So that's the limitation.
What about scheduling the hearing? Would that give us any leverage if we were to do that? Like getting that on the books?
We could the township would have the option of scheduling a special meeting where a hearing could take place, but the actual advertisement of the hearing and the potential adoption of the ordinance would have to take place after the amendments would be finalized.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah, I think we're just looking at, you know, what they're subjected to as far as the plan that's on the books.
Mhm.
So
Yes.
that, whatever we can do in that regard, aside from meeting for the next, after Monday, I think that's what we'd be looking for. I did want to thank everyone for their time to this, and I had a train of thought that just went right out of my head. Just give me a second on East Vincent advocacy. Oh, yes, on the special exception, we did speak to our solicitor. We have our own attorney, the organization does. And he agreed, like special exception will be more beneficial to the township because in addition to what Joe explained with the CU, when the board is in that role, they have to be a neutral party. In this case, in a special exception, they will be representing their interests, which hopefully align with our interests. And in that sense, it will give us more leverage. And he agreed that that was the right way to go. So I just wanted to share that.
Thanks.
You and Carl have a lot in common. Thanks, everyone. Thanks to the EVA team and everyone that came out, and responded to our call to attend. Thanks.
Thanks, Dana.
Thanks, Dana.
Anybody else?
Cindy Ramsey, 116 Penhurst Road. Bob, you said the last meeting that I was at, you were going to get new roads. Can you give me a little bit more information about that? We're getting new roads because this is going in?
No.
We're paying for them?
This
Why
is
are we getting
going
new roads?
damage that was done by PA American Water in the construction.
Okay, appreciate that. And speed bumps are coming soon?
Yes,
I just wanted to make clear.
yes. It is,
We're putting in speed bumps, but
that's all right. Well, hopefully we'll put them
I
as
just wanted to
permanent.
make sure that
No.
I just wanted to make sure that you're not also thinking about widening those roads.
No,
Okay, to make all this possible.
No.
For this wonderful data center that we're most likely going to get that none of us want. So, what can I say? You already know how I feel about it. We shouldn't be having it. Oh, the black carbon?
Yeah,
Yeah, that hasn't been brought up.
but in the existing iteration, what protects us against the black carbon usage? Anything?
In this ordinance, as it's written, no, the data center and energy technology campus is a standalone use and can't be combined with other uses. So that's what protects you.
But you said you already had a plan submitted that had a black carbon.
That's correct.
element to it.
That's right.
What causes that plan to fail? And I'm hoping to hear it in.
What causes, well, without getting, without giving away any potential legal arguments, what causes that plan to fail essentially is if this ordinance that is proposed passes and creates a standalone data center ordinance provision. This property owner's, well, what he has indicated to us is his preference is to do a standalone data center ordinance.
So no enforceable means.
Other than the fact that if this ordinance is something that he feels is, other than this ordinance, making it a standalone ordinance, no.
To the piece of water we want.
Or
But,
the,
and the heat purportedly want, but as I understand, there's nothing that really precludes the black carbon thing from being put in there in our existing ordinance.
I would, well, let me put it to you this way. We have been told that, and Bob has said repeatedly that this township has no interest in that use. We would use every means possible to challenge that use with the acknowledgement that it is a manufacturing use. So, but as far as Pennsylvania's, and I think, I don't think you were here at the last meeting, but Pennsylvania, as Senator Muth indicated, Pennsylvania is one of the few states that has an environmental bill of rights or environmental protections built into its constitution. We'd have to lean heavily on that.
So why are we on
It's not as strong of a legal
footing as something that's in order.
Any other comments? Online?
Hey everyone, this is Trevor Moose. Sorry, I was coming from another meeting and joined late, so I didn't hear the initial part of the meeting. But was this ordinance drafted based on an application that was already submitted to the township for a use, or was it drafted after the fact? I don't know if that was already discussed.
Let the solicitor field that one.
Uh,
Or Bob.
There was no plan that was submitted to the township well, let me back up. We are all aware that many years ago, there was a data center plan that was submitted to the township. It had basically boxes on it that identified different uses. I believe it was warehouse and data center. This ordinance was not drafted with that plan in mind. There was not a plan before the township, an application before the township that drove this ordinance to be something that was created. What we did have was a conversation with the property owner and his understanding that under the IMU, having multiple uses on the property would allow for, in part, a data center use when combined with other uses because of the incorporation of the catch-all provision in the industrial district into the IMU. So that is the plan that came in after the fact. We have received the plan effective Friday, I believe it was, Haley, Friday, that shows multiple uses on the property that would have to comply with the current zoning provisions from a bulk and dimensional standards criteria. We've conducted an initial review of that plan. We haven't completed that review. But that plan will, I believe, be posted, Bob,
Tomorrow morning.
tomorrow
It
morning.
will be sent out to the planning commission.
Right.
It is not an accepted plan though, as of yet. There
it
are
is.
things they have failed to comply with, so it is not an accepted plan as of this time, but we are going to post it and put it out there.
Right. That plan was provided by way of the current property owner's engineer electronically to the township as a sketch plan with the understanding that they would submit a conditional use application meeting the township's criteria in hard copy format sometime this week, along with the required fees. We have not seen that yet.
And maybe if I can just add to that. We wanted to get this going, to get out in front of this. So we had started the plan review process, which the planning commission had made comments to. We did receive other input on this because we knew at some point they were going to submit this. So we wanted to get out kind of in front of this as well.
Okay, thank you. And I caught part of what I joined right as Steve was talking, but if there are amendments to the ordinance in a subsequent meeting, would the applicant be held to the amendments as well, or the original ordinance?
That's a timing issue with when a special exception application came forward. If that application was submitted to the township in complete form, while, for example, this ordinance were in place, but before amendments had occurred, they would be held to the standards that are in the then adopted ordinance. Does that sound right? So I hope that makes sense, Trevor.
Okay. Yeah.
If I'm just going to add to that, to my learned colleague, I will disagree. Because once we begin the process of the amendment, we are going to hold that developer coming in at those new standards under the amendments. I know, Joe, from your side, the legal side in that, maybe it won't be, but because of how this application is going to come in with this agreement is you're going to comply with what the planning commission stipulates and on these amendments as the process as soon as possible. And I know Joe's rubbing his head there, but that's how we're looking at it, how we're looking at going.
All right, thank you. Appreciate it.
Sure.
In
Any
other words, we have to meet every night.
I think is if you have the first meeting, because what we'll do is we will ask the board after they approve this to recommend it go to the planning commission for amendments. Then you take it from there. Joe and I will disagree. I believe that's when the first time you meet to start discussing this, that's when I believe this will start. I know Joe is rolling his eyes, but that's the interpretation of the rules is that's how this township is gonna take it. You know, if you want to go somewhere else, that's fine, but this is how we're gonna handle it here in East Vincent Township. And if you don't like it, then you know what, you can go somewhere else.
So we have to wait for the Board of Supervisors to recommend that we make amendments. We can't.
Well, you can go ahead and Joe, I say you can go ahead and schedule your meeting. You know, and that you're going to start working on amendments for this. It's just a matter of when it's adopted, then basically that's when it turns on to where you can start now proposing these to go back to the board as an amended ordinance.
Right. And what I think where I will agree with you, how about that?
Wow.
You
Mark
know,
this down.
Once in a while.
Mark that down.
Is when we're talking about the special exception criteria and the conditions that could be placed upon any proposed plan, perhaps through a community benefits agreement or otherwise. Those are places where many of these things can be, at least in the interim, addressed. It's not as clear cut perhaps as having some conditions in the ordinance itself, but those are areas that can be addressed. And especially as if this were to be adopted and a plan came in and we were going through the process with all of the studies that are required, whatever those studies show in terms of impacts, potential mitigating factors can be included as part of the CBA.
Any final comments? Go ahead, Dana. The final comment.
Dana from Hearthstone Circle. Yeah, I was just gonna ask about communication, Bob. I know we talked about that. So we've got 2 more meetings coming up. You know, Advocacy and East Vincent Voices has been trying to, you know, get the word out to get people out. But, you know, I know it's on the website, but people obviously aren't just, unlike many of us, go there every day to see what's changed. But is there any way that the township can do a notification abroad?
Yes.
To get, you know,
We use our e-newsletter, which is through Ready Chesco, to be able to get that out. We'll send that out every day. Starting tomorrow, we'll send it out every single day.
okay, that's
to get
great.
that
Thank
out.
you.
No, thanks.
Bob, how many people received that?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Elaine.
We get 7,000. The problem is how many clicks do we get? And it's very few. So what I had suggested, recommended that we put as the header on there is East Vincent increasing taxes 5,000%. I guarantee everyone will click on it. So we're gonna need some catchy phrase to get people to click on that, to know that, you know, when these are sent out, it's information that, you know, you just need to read. You just gotta get used to it, you know, that something's on here. And that's what we're gonna try to do. And if you get one tomorrow, then that's on me, crazy header. But we just need people to click and read real quick, make it short and sweet on this thing of what's going on. And then if you want more, we'll take you to the website. Or if, you know, EVA, we can take you there too as well. We can go either place.
Bob, I don't get that news.
You don't?
No, it's not that
Okay.
I'm not clicking on it. I just don't get it.
Okay. Because we got everything from Ready Chesco. So we can also sign up for it. Haley, if you just want to.
Yeah, Elaine, did you sign up through Ready Chesco? If not, I can help you with that.
Yeah, no, I didn't. I don't
Okay.
think, but so that's why I'm wondering how many people get it.
That's how many we got from Ready Chesco.
Yeah, that's many that Ready Chesco.
That's
reports that
7,000,
get
so.
them. So,
Well, we try to keep pushing everybody like the newsletter that's going to go out, sign up, you know, just sign up on that.
and there's a spot specifically on our website to sign up for Ready Chesco as well.
Okay. We're good. All right, so recognizing that planning commission is in kind of a sticky situation of this time constraint and the board needing to act. But also recognizing that we're also in this sticky situation because a lot of our recommendations were not incorporated into this ordinance. I'm inclined to make a motion that the planning commission not recommend the data center ordinance for adoption by the Board of Supervisors for the reasons discussed tonight, including too much woodland disturbance, not following the 4-step design process, tree replacement standards, not citing LEED certification as a requirement. We don't agree with the maximum height. We don't think there's enough buffer. We're concerned about access and circulation issues, sound levels, the need for increased air quality monitoring, traffic studies, and increasing the radius to a wider radius than half a mile, to consider siting on the property, decommissioning, emergency response plans, and energy generation requiring that it be used on site, and not citing the Uptime Institute, but rather LEED, and to protect the Schuylkill River Trail and sensitive nature of the historic buildings on the site. So that is my motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I'd like to make a second motion that we meet again on Tuesday, the 23rd. And so the motion is for Haley to advertise a meeting at 7 o'clock on Tuesday, the 23rd, to reconvene and to request that the Board of Supervisors send any adopted amendment to the Planning Commission for immediate review. So, yeah.
Right. I think you want it sent back here regardless of whether it's adopted.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, thank you. So that's my motion.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Oh.
We'll relocate Park and Rec most like Bob. He'll see you on Thursday night for me.
What we'll do is we'll make sure that we tape the meeting Tuesday night here at the Planning Commission. So if you're there, you'll be able to catch it on reruns the next morning, the Planning Commission. And I'm going to guess that the Planning Commission is going to meet more than once on the amendment process.
I would also like to circulate a shareable Word document of the ordinance tonight, and that we can all start to add our red lines to, so that we can start the meeting having already made some progress on Tuesday.
Haley, can you do that? Okay.
Do you think we should schedule a meeting the next night also? I mean, can we do this in one night? And how far ahead do we have to schedule?
At least said
20
24 hours.
24 hours.
Well, I just think that this has to be done quickly, so we'll go in the back room.
What I think that perhaps what would make sense is the meeting on Tuesday. We can, if this board is so inclined, then Haley can put together kind of a schedule looking at the calendar and the other committees' meetings and see if we can kind of make it work after that Tuesday meeting. if it's Tuesday and Wednesday, that's fine, but I think that's with people wanting to be in both places at once, that's, I think, a reasonable type of thing to do. Or perhaps rescheduling other meetings and, for example, reschedule. I just think that there needs to be a little bit of time to give the administration to reach out to those boards and commissions. It'll be figured out by Tuesday, I would imagine.
Yes.
And then we can go from there. That's what we're all. Yes. There's meetings on Thursday for the town hall meeting this week. There is a Board of Supervisors special meeting on Monday, 6:30 start time, correct? 6:30 start time. And what is being proposed as a motion here is a meeting on Tuesday of the Planning Commission. What I'm hearing is possibly a rescheduled Park and Rec Board meeting on from Tuesday. And then there will be a meeting schedule that we can.
Okay.
Joe, does something that we've just voted on here cover the fact that we really want the BOS to know that we want to make amendments?
I think that Rachel's motion of having this come back here, regardless of what happens, covers that. And we will certainly let the board know.
Yes.
Okay, so did that motion pass? Did we do the final vote? Okay. Okay. I wanted to talk about the comprehensive plan tonight, but now I'm not in the mood. Maybe we can table that for another night since it's late and yeah. Does anybody else have anything they want to talk about, bring up? Sure, go ahead.
This is just Chris McNeil, Nottingham Drive. This is just a general comment regarding what's on the website right now. The Jewish holiday is on Monday, the 22nd, not on Thursday. And right now on the website, it's not correct is what it's stating. So you need to make that change. I know you're doing a lot of things, but I think that's important that we are sensitive to when that holiday actually is. Thank you.
Any other general public comment before we wrap up?
Yes, it is at 6:30. We'll correct that as well.
But the hearing, it begins at 7.
I'm sorry. The hearing so the meeting on Tuesday begins at 6:30. Excuse me, the meeting on Monday begins at 6:30. The hearing is scheduled for 7 o'clock. The hearing being the hearing on the zoning ordinance, on the data center ordinance. So meeting starts at 6:30, hearing at 7. Okay, and then the other meeting, did we?
It's at 7 o'clock.
7 o'clock for a start time on Tuesday. Six o'clock on Thursday. Sure.
I'd like to make a motion to adjourn the meeting. All in favor? Aye. Thanks for coming, everybody.
Thank you.